If I had to choose one diet to follow for the rest of time, keto, vegan, carnivore, Mediterranean, it would be the animal-based diet. Now, luckily, you don't have to choose just one. So in today's video, I want to describe my experience with the animal-based diet and how I've adapted it to better meet my lifestyle. My breakfast are these egg bites I've made a video on before, and it's probably my favorite recipe I've ever tried because it makes it so convenient during the week. It's just eggs, cheese, chicken sausage, and I do throw a little bit of broccoli in there as well. But you guys, check out that video if you want a quick, easy breakfast. And then on the weekends, a lot of you probably know that I like my PE Science protein pancake mix. So obviously this is not an animal-based food, but first off, let's start with my overall experience on the animal-based diet. So if you're not familiar with the animal-based diet, it has also been referred to as the meat and fruit diet because primarily those are the two foods you will be eating, other than maybe some maple syrup, honey, raw dairy, and a few very select other foods. And I believe primarily most people should be sticking to mostly meat and fruit in their diet anyway. So that's why I said if I had to choose only one diet, this one would be it. But we'll talk about maybe why sticking to one arbitrary diet may or may not be the best thing for you. But my overall experience with the animal-based diet was very, very positive. And I truly can't think of too many downsides other than just personal preference. But what the animal-based diet does is force you to make good food decisions because it is a very, I would call it restrictive diet in terms of what you're permitted to eat. So by default, if you can only choose from meat and fruit, it's going to be very hard to overeat and you're not going to be able to eat any processed foods. So if someone random came up to me on the street, I didn't know anything about them, and all they wanted to do was eat healthier, and I had to give them one diet, I would say out of simplicity, go animal-based because you cannot mess it up for the most part. Now, if you're eating just slabs of bacon all day long, obviously that's probably an issue, but using common sense with red meat, chicken, or whatever other lean sources of protein, and maybe even some fattier cuts as well, you're really not gonna be able to mess it up. What I appreciated most about the animal-based diet is the way I felt and performed, which is why for the most part, I'll still be sticking to a primarily animal-based approach with a few tweaks that we'll talk about. But because you're not eating ultra-processed high-sugar foods, you don't get those quick blood sugar spikes, you don't have that crash, you have very sustained energy, at least as sustained as it can be with an 18-month-old at home. So might have incorporated a little bit of caffeine still, but ultimately, it really made me feel the best out of any other dieting protocol I have ever tried. And I performed well in the gym, feel like I'm getting pretty lean, pretty cut up. And speaking of cuts, my favorite cuts is Cuts Clothing. They make the best fitting t-shirt you will ever try. I always tell people it doesn't matter how big, strong, and jacked you get. You can spend all day in the gym. Nothing will make you look better than the right fitting t-shirt. And as you can see, Cuts has just perfected it. I love the fit, the design, the minimalistic look. They have just made the ultimate shirt. I've been wearing these for years now. My entire wardrobe is made up of Cuts. I get so many compliments both in my personal and professional life, and I know you all will love their clothing as well. I also love their AO joggers and some of the newer products they've come out with. They've done such an incredible job of providing a premium look so you can wear it up, wear it down, no matter what the occasion is. Cuts has something for you. and you all can use code TRAVIS, 2 S's on the end, to save 20%. It's truly a win-win. You're gonna get the best fitting designed shirt you've ever worn. Save yourself a little bit of money. Use the link down below, code TRAVIS, save 20% at Cuts. For the most part, nothing has changed with the lunch. I always have ground meat prepared, so I'm gonna finish that off, and I will always, always, always have pineapple as my dessert. Absolutely obsessed with pineapple. Now, the one caveat here, which will drive the animal-based dieter purist crazy, I will be adding some vegetables. I just can't imagine a world where vegetables are not good for you in most cases. So I'm gonna do about half the bag there. So probably overkill on the veggies just a little bit, but I am going to make sure that this is a filling lunch. I'll add some salt and a little bit of garlic powder, and that will be that. You know, in some cultures, some might even consider this a casserole, or maybe that's just the Midwest where I grew up. One thing I try to do in all areas of life, politics, education, nutrition, anytime I'm trying to learn something, is I want to hear every perspective. I want to hear the argument, the counter argument, and then I want to make my own conclusion based off of what I've learned, what I've heard, my own experience, or really anything that just sounds to me like it makes sense. But I want to know all the information to make as educated of a conclusion as possible. So with the animal-based diet, I think the thought leader here is Paul Saladino. And I look at the other end of the spectrum where it's a very if it fits your macros approach where you can eat anything as long as it fits within your numbers. And that was really pioneered by someone that a lot of you know, named Layne Norton. So while I was doing this animal-based approach, I'm listening to Paul. I thought he had a lot of good points. I also listen to Layne. I think he has a lot of good points, and he definitely has some issues with Paul's methodologies, holistically, I would say. I found myself kind of somewhere in the middle, like a lot of different things, and I think a lot of you all can agree as well. So when I was thinking about the diet, I was not eating really anything processed for the most part, but it was a bit restrictive in terms of food selection. It was also a bit restrictive in terms of time because it's not the most convenient diet. And I don't think you should opt for the most convenient diet. You shouldn't be in McDonald's drive-thru just because it's fast and easy. But for me, I just wanted to find a little bit more of a blend. And I thought that Paul had a lot of great points. And I still believe the diet should be built on meats and fruits. So that is what I'm sticking with. But I think Layne also has a lot of really good points in terms of certain foods not being as bad as Paul might make them out to be. So I was kind of restricting myself, and then I would have these big cravings for simple foods like bread, right? And it's not like it's super processed bread. Megan makes sourdough from scratch, which is essentially just water, salt, and flour. And I was staying away from that, but it wasn't necessary from my experience, because what happened when I started to incorporate some of these foods that were non-animal based, I didn't see any negative repercussions with digestion or weight gain or the way that I felt, as long as, again, primarily my diet was still made up of meats and fruits, and then I would just supplement with some bread here and there, some pasta, potatoes, things that wouldn't fall in the traditional animal-based diet. And not only did I see great results physically, but mentally it was extremely helpful because I had just more to choose from, and then I didn't really have to be as selective when you're going out to eat or when you're eating dinner with the family or something like that. And from a convenience perspective, specifically with protein, now that I'm able to incorporate a good amount of whey protein powder, which I was kind of staying away from, at least I was limiting it more, but now I can end every day with 2 scoops, 40 grams of protein, and it's the best tasting protein in the world, so it's a win-win-win. That ultimately is how I was able to make this modified animal-based diet, which I guess isn't animal-based purely anymore, but for someone like me, it made a lot more sense. I took and I picked what I learned from both Layne and Paul and other thought leaders, in the communities, and found something that worked for me, and that's what I would advise all of you to do as well. that too? Trust me, I completely understand. I have been regressing in my steak progress, but I think I did pretty well with these. We will find out. Greg for Capital 5. So along with the steak, we've also got some organic potatoes baked to perfection. Again, not an animal-based food, but something that I love incorporating into my diet. All right, not bad, not bad. Camera wife, better than last time? All right, we're working on it, guys. And every night with my haze, I will sleep like a baby, love that stuff. And then I will also have 2 scoops of the PE Science chocolate truffle. Tastes like a milkshake. It is delicious. 46 grams of protein in that shake to end my day, specifically on the days when it's a little harder to get protein. So as I've been mentioning, the majority of my diet is still animal-based, but when I want to have things like this, which is every day, or potatoes, or pasta, or other foods that I don't believe are harmful at all. In fact, I think a lot of them are pretty good for you, even though the animal-based dieters may disagree. I have found what works for me, and it's been working extremely well, and that's why I said I'm glad you don't have to just choose one diet. I think people get really dogmatic about it and want to be, it's more of like a cult, right? It's just like tribalism when people are following this diet to a T, and the diet itself is pretty arbitrary, right? It was made up by another human, and there's no way for one human to design an optimal diet for masses, right? There's a lot of variables. So that is the end of the video. I appreciate everybody for sticking with me. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below, and I look forward to talking to you all next week.